Ladies and gentlemen, it is officially the 2022 NFL offseason, which means in 3 short weeks from today, it will be the new league year. So within the next couple weeks, we should start be hearing rumors, trades, cuts, all sorts of news revolving around the entire NFL, but right here for our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers, and what should be a very interesting last offseason for general manager Kevin Colbert. And they got most of the coaching gigs out of the way, so now they can fully focus on the actual roster. And when you look at the Steelers' 2022 free agency list right here, there's some names that they really have to prioritize and keep. And honestly, I think it's an appropriate time for us to talk about who they should and shouldn't keep, in our honest opinion. But before we actually get into the actual free agency list, we're going to talk about some guys that could be cap casualties, that could be cut just due to the fact they're being paid way too much or they're just too undependable. Some of those guys include, obviously, Joe Shelbert, linebacker. You know, we traded a 6th-rounder for him last offseason, last preseason, and he didn't really do too great. Now, I know him and Bush didn't really have a lot of time to work together. They also had a very poorly injured defensive line that benefited nobody on that defense, but still, the linebacker play from both those guys was pretty lackluster and very underwhelming, especially from a veteran like Shelbert.
Yeah, Joe Shelbert, he hasn't really amounted to anything since, I'd probably say his last year as a Cleveland Brown, before he got that big contract from Jacksonville, before he was traded a year later to us, and he hasn't really amounted to anything, he hasn't done anything, hasn't really shown any explosive defensive playmaking ability, or I don't think he ever will, really, in a Steelers uniform.
No, and plus, he's going to be owed damn near $10 million next year to do very little, in our opinion. So, honestly, we can see Shelbert being cut, and thus we're going to have to find a new fixture at linebacker, whoever that is, via free agency, via the draft. Time will tell on that. Another one is Zach Banner. We all know Zach Banner, 2-year, $9 million last year, very undeserving, very out of nowhere.
And overpaid like a motherfucker. Excuse my language, but Zach Banner, considering that he only had, one career start at the time?
In which he finished that game due to a torn ACL, and they extended him for that much.
And prioritized him over a guy like Mike Hilton, who was actually one of the big defensive assets to the Cincinnati Bengals last season.
Right. Now, I don't know if they actually will cut Banner, because if you look at our offensive tackle position right now, before cuts happen, before we can re-sign or sign anybody, as of right here, right now, our offensive tackle list is Dan Moore, Zach Banner, and Joe Haeg. I think that's it.
Yeah, as of right now, it's very, very slim.
It's pretty bare. So I don't know if they do cut Zach Banner, but I think, he's just too undependable and he's being paid too much to sit on the bench or for him to play a reserve role. Honestly.
Honestly, I mean,
unless he takes a pay cut, I'd cut Banner.
He really amounts to nothing. He doesn't really do anything. He's not really a big helping factor, even as a backup. Honestly, I think it's time to cut ties with Zach Banner and move on to another depth piece, if you ask me.
Now, could the same thing be said for a Stephon Tuitt? Now, this guy is obviously very beloved by everyone here. We just don't know the future of Tuitt. Tuitt has not updated anybody. It's about to be crunch time for Stephon Tuitt, because it's going to be around the time where they're going to have to make cuts and make decisions heading into the offseason, preparing for next season. And Tuitt, it's about time he starts updating the front office and the coaching staff and the team overall to, give us an update on what he's doing for next season. Is he going to return? Because if he does, there's no doubt in my mind the Steelers are going to welcome back with open arms.
Oh, without a doubt, absolutely. I mean, we all know how Stephon Tuitt is when he's on the field. He's an absolute beast, a monster, a very underrated player throughout the entire NFL, if you ask me.
Right.
But the thing about him is his ability to stay on the field. He's always had injury concerns ever since he was drafted by the Steelers. He just can't really seem to stay healthy, and I think he's still nagging a knee injury that he sustained sometime, I would assume. But at the same time, he's also still dealing with the unfortunate passing of his brother.
Right. So, prayers to Tuitt on all that, but it's starting to become crunch time for Stephon Tuitt to make a decision. So either he returns and the Steelers welcome back with open arms, or he retires, or is just not prepared and the Steelers are going to have to cut him.
But there's just no update on Stephon Tuitt. So at this point, it's anybody's guess.
It is. But say all 3 of those guys do get cut, or whatever happens, right, with those 3 guys. Say they're not on the team next year in some way. We could save up to I believe it's close to $20 million next year, just based on those guys.
And I believe the Steelers are projected to get around 29 some odd million dollars in cap space, which is the 10th most in the NFL, I believe. So if you were to get 20 extra more, that's almost $50 million in cap space.
Right.
And I can't remember the last time Steelers had this much money when it comes to salary cap.
No, not at all. Hell, they barely even had $20 million altogether the past many off seasons that we can remember. So for them to be over that this year and them to possibly save more by cutting the guys we just named, and definitely restructures on the way coming soon, I mean, they're going to create almost $50 million in cap, probably more, honestly.
And that gives them the ability to go out their way and do un-Steeler-like things and sign big names or sign a good bit of quality free agents that they can be able to acquire.
Which Colbert has mentioned, the reason why we haven't been that aggressive is due to the lack of cap space we have. Now they're going to have a little bit more to play with. The wallet hopefully is open a little bit from Colbert in his last offseason. But not only can they use that cap to make some splashes, fingers crossed, at positions we really need to focus on, most of that cap is probably going to go to some of these free agents we're going to list right here, right now. At the top of the list, you guys can see right here, Joe Haden, cornerback. We all love Joe Haden. So appreciative of him. We all know the days before he came to Pittsburgh. Good Lord Almighty, there were some awful days, believe me.
And ever since he's came into to the Steelers, ever since he's put on a Steelers uniform since 2017, the guy has been an absolute beast for us, if you ask me. He's been great, but lately you could be able to tell, especially in the later parts of last season, he wasn't really the old Joe Haden. He wasn't really young Haden, because obviously when a corner gets up with age, they tend to decline, and that kind of showed a little bit last season for Joe Haden. And my worry is if we do bring him back, we're going to overpay him only for him to decline, and I don't know if I'd be willing to risk that.
Exactly. We all love Hayden. We're all very appreciative of him. I will always cherish that interception versus the Patriots in the color rush. Man, we took off work for that. I'll always cherish watching that live, that victory altogether. But thanks to Hayden for that crucial interception. I'll always cherish that. Always cherish, what Hayden did for this defense. He was pretty much the start of the resurrection of the secondary.
He really was.
But Rob is right. Do you want to overpay an already regressing corner just to continue to regress? And I think the cap that we would use to extend Hayden, if we were to extend him, we could use that to extend many depth pieces or actually use that money to go out and get a quality starter via free agency.
Right.
JuJu Smith-Schuster. Now, this is a topic of discussion. This is a big name when you look at the Steelers free agency pool because we all don't know the future of JuJu. We all know he came back. He took less last year to stick with Ben for the one last ride.
Now, this time around, it's completely different if you ask me, because the quarterback situation is quite unknown. Nobody really knows who could very well be the starter. That could be Mason. That could be a free agent. That could be a draft pick. We don't know right now. And I don't know if JuJu is going to be willing to wait for that, especially if a team like the Cowboys or maybe the Ravens and the Chiefs show more interest in him and offer him a bit more money or something like that, more than the Steelers could potentially offer JuJu to stay. Maybe he wants to go
more than
out
they'd
there.
be willing to offer him.
Right. And he could very well go and actually play with a top-tier quarterback, like the teams I just mentioned.
Right. So
it's possible. I just don't see JuJu really waiting to see what the Steelers do if a team's going to give him a call and give him an offer.
I don't know what the future holds for JuJu. I'm going to go into it the same way I went into it last year. I will always welcome JuJu back with open arms, especially since our wide receiver room is very bare. As of right now, before we can re-sign or sign anybody, we're only looking at Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Cody White. That's it. Wide receiver is bare. Bringing JuJu back would bring that dependability. Now, he's not a guy who's going to put up mind-blowing stats. He's not going to be a 2017, 2018 JuJu again. I think those days are well behind JuJu, honestly.
But you can't deny his dependability.
Very dependable is JuJu, man.
And that's something that we could definitely use as far as dependability, as far as depth, as far as a hell of a target that JuJu really is.
And for the next quarterback, for sure. So I would welcome JuJu back open arms, man. A part of me still really appreciates JuJu. But at the same time, if he leaves, so be it. We're the Steelers, man.
Yeah, we know how we are with wide receivers. It's now hard for us to replace a former Steelers wide receiver. It's not.
So I'd bring back JuJu. I think it's actually a smart decision to bring back JuJu just based on what we said. But if he goes, so be it.
We're going to go into this process this offseason as we did last offseason with JuJu. If he stays, great. If he leaves, so be it.
Eric Ebron, tight end. I think we can all agree this guy he's on his way out. because we all know he was just a fill-in before we could get Muth, and Muth took the number 1 spot from him. And Zach Gentry has progressed incredibly as the number 2 tight end. He actually deserves that number 2 tight end position next year. I think he actually has already grabbed it. So it's secured by Gentry. So
yeah, Gentry's development has been very, very great to watch, very good to see. Gentry, he was a couple years ago, he was somebody that we all thought, wasn't really going to stay with the team for much longer, wasn't really going to make the 53-man roster after preseasons. But yeah, this guy, his development has been great to see, great to watch. And I'm happy for Gentry from how far he's come, really.
And because of that, Ebron just has no role anymore.
He has zero role, and I don't think he's going to want to come back to Pittsburgh just to be a number 3 tight end.
Akalo Witherspoon. Now, I think I speak for a lot of Steel Nation when I say this is the guy at the top of the list that must be resigned. And I even put him over JuJu.
Oh, without a doubt. Witherspoon, obviously we traded a 5th-round pick for him when he was signed last free agency with Seattle. We traded a 5th-round pick for him, and the guy was nothing but a healthy and active for the first half of the season. But due to injuries at cornerback, he's stepped in and actually had I believe it was a team-tying leading interceptions with 3 for the team. And the guy, his coverage ability, his play style on the field was very good.
Yeah, he was actually, when you watch him towards the second half of the season, he was one of the, main lockdown corners. Every time the ball was thrown his way, rarely was a completion. It was more interceptions from what I saw, to be real with you. So Witherspoon was a nice bright spot in the secondary last year, and definitely a guy we got to lock up.
And I mentioned him being us trading a 5th-round pick for him because I look back at the other guys that we traded 5th-round picks for, but we never kept. I look back at tight end Nick Vannett. Traded a 5th-round pick for him. He didn't amount to anything. We didn't resign him. We wasted that 5th-round pick. Same can be said for inside linebacker Avery Williamson when we traded for him from the Jets because Devin Bush got hurt. Never amounted to anything. Didn't resign him. Wasted that 5th-round pick. I don't want this 5th-round pick being wasted because Witherspoon, compared to those two, blows those two out of the water completely.
Yeah, this is a guy the Steelers must resign, that's for sure. Pair him opposite of Sutton next year, maybe a veteran corner we could sign or a corner we could draft because it's a deep class. So Witherspoon, I think, should start outside for sure next year, but he needs to remain in Pittsburgh. He's one of the guys at the top list they must prioritize.
Without a doubt.
Trey Turner, on the other hand, is not, in our opinion. Trey Turner was a decent fill-in when DeCastro was cut, and he was the best available option, but he just didn't really amount to much last year. He was actually one of the weaker spots on the offensive line, in my opinion. It's just his age was showing. He didn't really bring that veteran aspect we all hope so. So to revitalize the entire offensive line, I think we ought to just get rid of Turner. He was a nice one-year rental, but time to move on.
Yeah, there's no need to Band-Aid the offensive line again. Turner, even if we are trying, which I think we should, revamp the offensive line, Turner's not really going to amount to anything. I don't think so. He's only going to decline due to his age and his injury concerns, so I'd move on from Turner completely.
Terrell Edmunds, safety. Now, this is another topic of discussion because Edmunds sure does have his criticizers. And believe us, we were part of that pool.
Especially early on. I did not like I didn't mind the player of Edmonds at the time. I just didn't like that we select him in the first round. I would have preferred a Jesse Bates or a Justin Reed over a Terrell Edmunds at the time. But you could tell, slowly but surely, his development has definitely gotten better. He's gotten better on the field. And if you ask me, he does his job very well, opposite of Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's not one of these splashy defensive players. He's not going to make splashy interceptions. He's not going to make or get a lot of turnovers. But the guy does his job very well. He's a surefire, good tackler. He covers those tight ends very well, and he complements Minkah as well, too.
I've been very pleased with Edmonds' progression, that's for sure. And I think, as well as Witherspoon, is a guy we have to prioritize to keep the secondary whole. One of the few bright spots last year in the secondary was Witherspoon and the continued progression of Edmonds. I think we got to keep him. I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree, and that's fine. But I've been pleased with Edmonds, and I think we ought to keep him and Minkah together because if you don't, then that's another hole on the defense that the Steelers are going to have to fill. Now there's guys out there in the free agency pool you could pick up. There's a Jesse Bates. There's a Justin Reed. There's a Tyrann Mathieu. There's a
Jordan Whitehead.
Right. So, I mean.
Marcus Williams, I believe.
There's guys out there, but would you want to lose a guy that's been under your defense and you've progressed and you're happy with that and gamble on someone in the free agency pool that you probably may or may not get? It's a gamble. I'd rather just continue and keep Edmonds.
Yeah, keep Edmonds, keep that safety tandem together. Like I said, he's not one of these guys that makes splashy plays, but that's what Minka's for. Minka makes those splashy plays.
Edmonds plays his role just very well for us.
And I think he continues to will if he stays in the Steelers uniform. I think he will get better.
Honestly, I feel like if Edmonds wasn't a first rounder, he wouldn't get this much criticism from a lot of.
No, he definitely would.
And believe us, we were part of that poll as well. And I'm willing to admit, if he wasn't a first round pick, he wouldn't have gotten so much criticism from us as well. But Edmonds has been solid. He's been a decent project, a decent development under, a system that just has no good history recently.
No, not at all.
But I'd keep Edmonds, man.
He does his job well. I'd bring him back for sure.
Miles Killebrew. This is a guy the Steelers must keep for not only linebacker / safety depth, specifically safety depth, but also to remain as an ace on special teams. If it wasn't for Matthew Slater being a special teams god with the Patriots, Miles Killebrew would have easily made the Pro Bowl.
I probably have to agree. The guy, even dating back to his Detroit Lion days, the guy is a special teams demon. He's been a special teams demon. I think he always will be a special teams demon. I think he's someone that you definitely want to bring back and make sure that your special teams is solid as well.
Yep, keep him and Derek Watt together and secure that special teams for sure. I think we got to keep Killebrew. I think he'll be cheap as well.
Yeah, for sure.
James Washington. I think we can all agree this guy is clearly on his way out. He's actually already out the door because he requested a trade earlier last season, and he was hoping to get extra playing time. The Steelers did not trade him because they lacked depth at that point.
And because of JuJu's injury, we all thought this was Washington's time to shine, to showcase his true potential.
That was not the case, though.
No, it wasn't.
But Washington, as much as I would like to keep him, I think he's a very good depth guy. He's got very strong hands. He's a dependable target. He's on his way out, and I think he deserves a chance to shine somewhere else. So Washington is definitely out of here.
Well, without a doubt. And I wish him the best of luck because I think Washington still has the capability and the talent and potential to really be a solid target in the NFL. I do.
Agreed. Joshua Dobbs, quarterback. I'm keeping this guy. Now, I don't know exactly what his role will be at quarterback. He could battle for the quarterback spot or with whoever, probably Mason, Haskins, a rookie, a free agent, maybe all the above. I'm more so keeping Dobbs so that the Steelers can continue to keep him around to get him working as a future coach. Because I feel like that's where Dobbs could be a Byron Leftwich 2.0 or a Kellen Moore 2.0. I think he has the football smarts and the connection on the sideline to be that next quarterback turned OC.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Dobbs' playing style, I don't see him amounting to much whatsoever. But as a coach, absolutely. I think he can be a great coach down the road if we were to explore that option with Josh Dobbs.
I think that's what Tomlin's going to do. I think they're going to keep Dobbs, and Tomlin's going to work him under his coaching tree and start progressing him as an offensive coach down the road.
I could absolutely see that, and I'd be all for that. I really would.
It could be sooner rather than later because, again, I don't know what Dobbs' role is going to be at quarterback outside of maybe a practice squad guy, someone that we use when we have to face the Ravens as a model Lamar Jackson in practice. Maybe he sees time on the field and read options similar to what he did a few years back versus the Browns under Canada. I don't know how often that's going to be, though, so I don't know exactly what Dobbs' role is going to be at the quarterback position, but I think he continues to be groomed as a coach.
I have to agree.
Ray Mcleod, good old Ray, man. This guy, he doesn't make a lot of big plays. He's not a splashy player, but you can tell down the line, down the road when he filled in for JuJu, he did show a lot of dependability. And not just as a receiver, but also as a return specialist.
And that's the thing about Ray. Not only is he quality depth, especially in the slot, he's a quality, dependable target as well. Like Dan said, you could tell, he got better when it came to that aspect. And his return specialist, I can't, outside of maybe Antonio Brown, I can't recall a great return specialist in the past decade.
He's been our best return specialist in a very long time. And again, he's not a guy that's going to get a lot of touchdowns. He's not a guy that's going to make a lot of splash plays. But he's a dependable football player in every aspect you need him to play at.
And when it comes to Matt Canada remaining as the Steelers' offensive coordinator, I think this guy's going to be resigned.
B.J. Finney. I'm letting this guy walk because he was mostly an inactive, and I think his days in Pittsburgh is just he came back just because he's a familiar face, and I think he ought to just leave, honestly. I think it's time to revitalize that entire offensive line and even the depth aspect. So
yeah, I mean, there's really no point for Finney to come back. We experimented that for a second chance, and I don't really think he amounted to anything. He was a healthy and active, like Dan said. So I mean, I just don't see any point of Finney coming back. I really don't.
Me neither.
I'd move on from him.
However, Montravius Adams. Now, we all know the injuries that the D-line suffered last year. Tua didn't play. Alu went out early. Carlos Davis was on IR early. And Loudermilk stepped in. He looked pretty solid. Isaiah Bugg stepped in. He did not look solid, and then he got injured, and then he was cut. And we had to really go out and find guys to fill in because we were that desperate at interior defensive line.
Yeah, to a point we signed Montravius Adams off the Saints practice squad.
And he was a very bright spot on,
the defensive line.
A weak defensive line. He was a guy that constantly popped out on the screen, that made plays in the pass rush, especially against the run. Montravius Adams is a guy that needs to be resigned and added to what could be a very good and possibly elite defensive line depth next year. Because if you look at it, let's say Hayward and Tua come back. If not, we got Wormley. Then you're looking at Alu coming back. You got the Davis twins. You got Loudermilk, and you potentially got Adams. That's a very good defensive line depth or defensive line core in general with a possible draft pick or veteran to come in as well.
Oh, without a doubt. I definitely bring back Adams to solidify depth, a guy that can step in if need be, if Alu were to get injured again, knock on wood. Adams has definitely showed a lot of upside ever since he was signed by the Steelers. I think, without a doubt, you bring him back for sure.
For sure. Arthur Millett, cornerback. Now, I know cornerback is pretty bare right now. He is one of the 3 free agent corners we got, Hayden, Witherspoon, and Millett. I'm letting Millett walk. He looked really good against the run when he was a slot corner. However, in coverage, I was not pleased whatsoever.
No, his coverage ability was very inconsistent. I mean, we experimented this guy in the slot after Mike Hilton left because Son was moved outside, and I don't think this guy really amounted to anything. I don't think he ever will in a Steelers uniform. Honestly, I'd be willing to give Trey Norwood the opportunity.
Not only Trey Norwood, but let's say we sign Witherspoon and draft or sign another outside free agent corner. Then you could put Sutton in the slot and keep Trey Norwood as the dime guy.
Or you could have both guys split reps, kind of like how Son and Mike Hilton did.
There you
when
go.
Hilton was with the Steelers.
There you go. So I think we have guys that could fill in the role of what Millett had. Taco Charlton, edge. Now, this is a guy that stepped in after Melvin Ingram forced his way out. And I'm keeping Taco because he actually looked pretty decent as a depth guy coming in mid-season.
Our edge depth has been very lackluster, I'd say. The Ingram experiment didn't work out. We had Jameer Jones, to which we cut, and we drafted Quincy Roche in the 6th round, to which we didn't even keep him. And we had to rely on Taco Charlton to be signed to be our edge depth. And as edge depth, I feel like Taco was decent. I feel like he was a fine depth piece. I feel like you should definitely bring him back to at least secure edge depth because our edge depth is not looking too good.
I think Taco will be back because the Steelers also love that first-round pedigree in their guys, and that's what Taco was. He was a first-round pick. He was actually taken before T.J. Watt, and now we got both those guys. So I'm keeping Taco for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlyn Bellage. Yeah, this dude can walk.
I'm not bringing Caitlyn Bellage back. I mean, the guy, he had his moments in preseason, but that's the thing. It was preseason.
Yeah, when he had to step in for Najee in certain times, him and Snell, and even Anthony McFarland, you could tell it was night and day. It was like it was like watching heaven and hell.
It really was. It goes to show how bad our running back depth is.
It also goes to show you how good Najee is.
Yeah, it really does. And Bellage, I mean, as depth, I'd let him walk. Honestly, I'd go out in free agency and find a true and actual dependable number 2.
Which is what the Steelers need to do. Chuck one more core for. Chuck's, man, he is still very young, and that's probably his best aspect is that he's barely even 25 years old. But he's been he's been the starter for a better part of the last 3 years, switching back from left to right tackle due to injuries. I would bring him back as a swing guy, He could be cheaper than Joe Haeg because Joe Haeg right now is our swing guy. If we could cut Joe Haeg and use that money to keep a core for where he's a little bit more dependable. He has that starting experience. He can swing from left to right. I'd bring him back as a swing guy, but not as a starter. But that's my concern. Is he going to want starter money since he started pretty much the better part of the last 3 years.
Right, and I would probably imagine that he won a good bit of money in free agency. I would be up to bringing him back. I have to agree as a swing guy. But I have this feeling that the Steelers will at least bring him back just to make sure they have a securable starting caliber player. To which Chucks is that, but he's nobody mind-blowing. He's nobody really dependable.
He's not someone that...
If you ask me, he hasn't really gotten that much better. He hasn't really progressed or gotten better since his rookie year.
That's where I was going with. He's a guy that when you watch, you don't see a guy that's progressed consistently at least.
He just looks the same if you ask me. As a swing guy, I definitely bring him back. But I have a feeling the Steelers will bring him back as a starter just to make sure, hey, we took care of that spot.
Right.
We took care of that tackle position. Because tackle is definitely a big need. So I have a feeling they'll definitely bring him back just to secure that spot.
In my opinion, that would just be a Band-Aid, though.
It would be a Band-Aid situation.
Hopefully not, though. But as a swing guy, I'm all for it. Robert Spillane. Now, all the names we just talked about are unrestricted free agents. Now we're going to get into the restricted free agents pile. Robert Spillane, he's a restricted free agent, so I'm imagining this guy's going to get tendered, which means he could come in and say Shelbert does get cut. He could come in and battle with whoever's going to be opposite of Bush. He could start beside Bush temporarily to start the season before we put that new guy in, depending on who that is. Mm-hmm. That could be a draft pick. That could be a veteran. But I think we're going to tender Spillane. I would. He's really good against the run. He's a good special teams guy. Just don't put him in coverage. We all know that.
No, absolutely not. Spillane, he's quality depth. I wouldn't say he's a quality starter. Not at all.
No, Spillane is a situational football player if you would ever put him on the field.
Right, of course. But as a depth piece and a special teams guy, absolutely.
Right.
And now I do believe he will come back.
Dwayne Haskins. This is another restricted free agent. This is a guy that will get tendered, and I agree he should get tendered to compete with Mason, with whoever's going to be part of the quarterback battle next season. I would definitely tender Haskins, keep him around, and see what he's got.
And I'd be all for it. I don't think he's going to do anything mind-blowing. I don't think he's going to be a quality starter or he's not going to reach. I don't think he's going to reach that number one round pick like the Commanders thought that he was going to be.
But still, the Steelers like that first round pedigree in players. But I like to give Haskins the opportunity to give him one last shot.
I think the Steelers will most definitely give him that opportunity just to see if he has progressed or if he can showcase anything.
Right.
I don't think he will, but all one guy needs is a chance, so we'll see.
Marcus Allen. This is another restricted free agent. Another guy that could get tendered. He could add more to linebacker depth to help out in special teams. Marcus Allen, he switched from safety to linebacker, and that has helped a little bit. Marcus Allen is just more of the locker room enthusiast, the locker room charismatic TikTok guy, as we all know.
Yeah.
That's all I see from Marcus Allen. Maybe they tender him, maybe they don't. I'd let him walk, honestly. I think it's time to move on with the Marcus Allen experiment because I think we already have guys that can fill in what he can do. So.
I probably have to agree. I mean, Allen doesn't really amount to anything. He hasn't really done anything even since moving to linebacker. I'd let him walk, but I think the Steelers will bring him back just to secure inside linebacker depth because let's not forget they did keep a lot of depth last season for inside linebacker, so I think they do something similar this upcoming season.
Okay, one of the main reasons why I'd let Marcus Allen walk is because I want to give Buddy Johnson that chance.
No, I definitely agree. I 100% agree. I would definitely give Buddy Johnson an opportunity.
Lastly, guys, J.C. Hazenor, this is an exclusive rights free agent, so I'm definitely anticipating this guy being back, and I would bring him back just to fill in that B.J. Finney role. This guy can do everything B.J. Finney can while being on the active list, and has actually looked pretty solid in his progression. He actually stepped in for Kendrick Green towards the end of the season, according to Colbert, because Green was
injury-related.
Yeah, because it was injury-related. I guess that's what's Colbert saying.
No, but I'll give Hazenor this. I don't think he's a starter, but he is a natural center. He's a decent depth piece, and he's definitely worked his way up to be a solid depth piece, if you ask me.
I would definitely bring this guy back. But anyway, guys, that is the 2022 Steelers free agency list and our opinions who the Steelers should and shouldn't keep. Give us your guys' opinions down below and your thoughts, and we'll be out with another mock draft next week, man. One more mock draft. Actually, there's going to be 2 more mock drafts before free agency hits. So
the next week we'll be out with another mock draft just in time before the NFL Combine, which is next week.
Right before the NFL Combine, and who knows, maybe the Steelers start making moves sooner than we think, and that could determine our next mock or our next 2 mocks before free agency actually hits. So these next couple weeks should be interesting because we're going to start hearing news and rumors all around the NFL, and especially the Steelers. But can't wait for that. You know, it's starting to come crunch time for these teams and for these players, so it's going to be very interesting heading into March for sure. But let us know your guys' thoughts down below, and see you guys in the next one.
Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Peace!